I will share my desktop, then we will be able to review the questions. Okay. First question, what is the difference between data center physical design and logical design? Physical design, physical infrastructure, BREM, this is right answer. Don't remember. Logical designs deal with risks. No, this is wrong number. Wrong answer. Anger, no. Physical design based on location, built or by model, environmental design, logical. Yes, you are right, Sanal. These are the components, but the best answer it's coming from BREM. That the physical design, it is physical infrastructure, the location, guards, lights. This it means the infrastructure, which is to remember it, it's tangible, something tangible which you can touch it as a data center, as a host, and so on. But the logical or virtualization, it will be something untangible, virtual machine, VMs, and so on. Okay. What are the possible risks for hosting an application in the cloud? Okay, APIs attack, that's right. DOS, data breaches, data stolen, any attacks which is targeted to the network. Also, it can affect storage as well. When you have the data breach, you have the data stolen, you have the unauthorized access for the data, you have the inside or internal malicious users, whatever any codes which it can affect any attacks which can affect the network. Also, it can affect the network as well, the storage as well. This is very important because this question considered as a summary for the attacks on the story. What are the virtualization possible risks? VM spiral, guest escape. I did not mention this. This it's not the expected answers. I'm not asking for this. This it will be covered later. How network traffic is handled if the hypervisor compromised when the whole VM compromised. Yes, this is a part of the right answer. Hyper-V, sorry, I don't know what is Hyper-V. I did not mention Hyper-V in the course. The course, we are not speaking about products. We are speaking about the general concept. Then this is not the right answer. Sanat, it's not the right answer. Risk from VM manages, images, no. It's not from VM managers. We mentioned in the virtualization possible risk, gentlemen, that you can expect the hypervisor, it will be compromised. If the hypervisor is compromised, then this means that it will affect all the machines or VMs hosted by this hypervisor. Also, if the host or hosts are working together to allow failover of service from one host to another host, then this hypervisor, it can consider the compromised hypervisor, it can be considered as an attack for the other hypervisor on the other host. Also, we mentioned there is another possibility that one of the VMs, it can be rented or leased by a hacker, and if this machine it is compromised, it can affect the others VMs as well. Then virtualization possible risks, there are three possible risks. Hypervisor affect the local machine, hypervisor affect other hypervisor, or the one VM affect other VMs. These are the possible risks for the virtualization. What are the recommended physical security controls for protecting physical environment? Of course, this question it is يعني very wide, and this will never be as in the form of CCSP questions. But if you think it like that, I like usually to build what we can say mind map, mind map for the physical security. It will start from the building from outside. Then, if I start from outside, I will speak about the fences, about the lights, about the guards, security guards, about the bollards, and so on. Then these are the components which we can think about from outside. Then we will think about the intermediate area between the data center and the outside, where the network connections, power supply, and so on. These are the equipments which are required from outside to run the data center, and this must be access control and all this stuff. It should be redundant. It should be redundant, and you have to keep in your mind it should be from a different source. It should be from a different source. If it's from the same source, this it will not be the right or recommended approach. Then when we reach to the data center, we will think about the cages, about the power, internal power supply, about the distribution, power distribution units, about the power sources. Also, do you remember the tanks of the power supply or the generators? I mean, it should be filled in and so on. These are the physical security controls which are important for a physical environment. Then to make life easy and be easy to remember, you can split it into areas or zones which is outside the data center, or I mean outside the organization, then in intermediate between the organization and the data center, then in the data center itself. What are the recommended physical security controls for protecting virtualization infrastructure? Control access, privileged access to management plans, security patches, SIM logs, VPN access. Yes, this is the right answer. As we mentioned, gentlemen, the virtualization infrastructure, by the end of the day, it is some sort of a data center. Then, of course, one of the most important points that you have to work very closely with the data or with the visualization manufacturer to provide you the latest patches and updates. Then you have to work with it as a normal data center. Then we have to protect the hypervisor. This is very important. Protect hypervisor, protect the management plan. If you can remember when we mentioned the management plan, this is one of the most critical applications which we have to protect. We have to protect the exchange of the data between hosts and between VMs. And we said that although it is not easy to add a physical firewall between the different VMs, but I think we are lucky right now because we have these firewalls are available as images. Then this means that you can have a firewall from in any manufacturer and ask to him to provide it to you in the form of an image, and you can install it on the VM. Then whatever any traffic which it will be exchanged between different VMs, it will not pass through one VM to the other VM. It will go through the firewall and from the firewall to the other VM. And this means that the traffic, it will be inspected over, and this it can be through firewall, it can be through logging software, it can be through IBS, IDS, anti-malware, and so on. For any security device which you are interested in. What is the definition of following expressions: identification, authentication, and authorization? again, this is one of the questions which I'm not expecting that you will find it in CCSB. CCSB, we are considering that you have 5 year experience in security, but I want to make sure that you are understanding these concepts, although they are very simple, but it is very important to understand the concept. If you are not understanding the concept, I'm quite sure that you will lose a lot of questions in your exam. Identification, who are you? Authentication, provide an identity. That's good. Or I like to call it prove your identification. Authorization, what you are authorized to do on the network. This is the right solution. Also, I want to add one piece of information here that uh, here Mohammed Wakil, he mentioned authentication username and password. I don't like this answer because this is one of the factors. When if you want to say that, what about biometrics? What about something you have? Then this is not right answer. When we say authentication, prove your identity. And authentication, it has multiple factors which are used in authenticate the user. First one, it is the something you know as username password, something you are, which is biometrics, something you have, which is the email, SMS, mobile, and so on. IAAA is identification. I know that, Sanad, this, I know that it's identification. This is the same. This is the definition here. This claim of subject, authentication, proof of identity, and authorization is yes. This is a good answer as well from mine. What is the federation rule in migration and application service from organizations data center to CCSB? Standard based on policies, technologies being employed by different organizations so they can join their identity systems and allow applications to access them while still maintaining their autonomy. Authentication for users and access to authorization data. Allow them to access multiple and domains. No, this definition anchor, it is not the federation. Allow authorization to access multiple app and domains. This is not federation. This is the SSO. This is not the right answer. The right answer for federation, gentlemen, as we mentioned that we don't want to make life difficult and each user he will have a different username and password. Then if he have only a centralized username and password in his organization, then what we have to do that we have to configure a federation service in wherever any cloud service provider where they are providing the service and the data, it will be shared with them. Then if the cloud service provider want to authenticate your identity or check the authorization, then what he have to do that he can send this data into the centralized data center or centralized organization to make sure that this is the right username and password and it is authorized. Then this is the definition or the functionality of the federation. What is SAML? What is its usage? SAML, it is access control protocol. It is used for authentication, authorization, and accounting. And as we mentioned that it has 3 components: the client provider, the credential provider, and the service provider. What is it used in? It is used not only for authentication, it's used for authentication and authorization. Please, gentlemen, be very specific in your answers. When you will tell me, Samuel, it is authentication, this is not the only right answer. It is also for authorization. These are the types of questions in the CCSB. It will give you a question like that, and you will find that it provides you the answers not as a circle answer. It will be as a square answer. Why? Because you have to answer multiple questions. Then one of them, it may be authentication, and the other one, it will be the authorization. I think we finished the questions here. Do you have any questions before moving to the next session, part of the session?
Yes, sir. This is on that virtualization protection. I think you had mentioned about the jump servers. So I just
I
went through
mentioned
the.
about what? I did not hear you, Prem. You said I mentioned what?
No, no. I sorry for my bad throat.
No.
I have a bad cold. So you were talking about last week on the virtualization system protection. So you were talking about a particular concept on the jump servers, and
Ah,
uh,
okay, okay,
so
okay.
if you could just explain that once more. Even though I went through the
Sure,
book,
sure.
but I think I have a.
No problem, no problem. What is the concept behind the jump server? This is very important also, gentlemen. Visit the jump server, it will be used, and as I remember in the CCSP, they mentioned this for the management plan, for the administration. Sorry, plan, it is not E, there is no E here. Number one, it can be through VPN connection. Or number two, it can be through jump server. What is jump server? It's clear from its name. To understand what is jump server, let me draw a diagram to you to understand it. Suppose that this is the internet. Here we have a router, which is reside in your organization, then a firewall, then this firewall one, then you have another firewall two, then you have here workstations, and you have here the data center, and the data center, it has multiple servers connected to. For some reasons, you want to allow the remote administration for these servers. I know that this is very critical. There are some organizations, they all not allow this at all. But in some situation, it may be required and it is mandatory. Then, as we mentioned, solution number one, it is the VPN, and I will not speak too much about this because I think this will be covered later. But now let's speak about the jump server. What is a jump server? The jump server, it is a server with two network interface card. There may be one the jump server here. This jump server, it has one interface here, and it has another interface here. Then when the user he want to make a connection, he will go through the internet like that and to this server. Then he will be connected through the server to this machine. What is the benefit of this one? The benefit here that this jump server, it will be only the server which is published. No other servers are published or allowed to access the internet. Then, what is the point here? No server, it will be allowed. No server of these servers, let me change the color. No servers, it will be allowed to be accessed from outside, direct, I mean. No one you will be allowed to access direct. When the user, he will go through this connection to this server, and from the server, it will go to other server which it want to connect. And in the administration of this server, that these servers, it will allow or it will mention that through an access control list that the jump server, it is the only server IP which it will be able to make the configuration. It is the only one make the configuration. Fine. You may ask, okay, gentlemen, again, we may have a trouble here. Why? Because this server, it is coming from outside. It receives a connection from outside, and this server, it can, the attack it's coming, and it will pass through the server and reach the internal server. I tell you, no, this it will not. Why? Because we will mention that this server, it is the jump server, it is very important, and we will have all security controls on this server. Then we will mention that We have IPS, IDS, we have firewall, we have logging, we have anti-malware, whatever we have maybe application whitelist. Then if there is any hacker try to install anything on the application, you will not be able to install anything at all. Then all these controls, it will help that if there is any attack to be detected, and usually we are configuring the access for your some jump server if it find any attack or any malicious attack to drop the traffic, immediately drop the connection, immediately to drop the connection to make sure that this it will not represent any risk or a backdoor for any attack. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr.
Any
Usama,
other
I have a question
questions?
here. Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned in job server that we put the IDS, IPS, all of that. Is there like a one solution for all of that for a jump server service, or it's like a collection of solutions?
This is a good question. This is a good question. Uh, uh, Usually, you'll find, for example, the firewall, IPS, IDS, anti-malware. It will be one solution. It may be Kaspersky, it may be Semantic, it may be McAfee, it may be whatever. For logging and alerts, it may be another solution. It may be just a matter of protocol, which it will send the traffic in form of syslog traffic or whatever into any internal server. Whitelist, of course, it will be a different traffic. Then the point here, which I want to clarify, gentlemen, that usually security solutions, it's not a matter of one box. And frankly speaking, what I'll tell you, this is my opinion as Osama. It is not a standard or anything like that. This is a personal opinion. Usually, if I put myself in the administrator's shoes, I will not use the products which is all in one. I will not use these products all in one. Although it has some benefits, first of all, it will be easy for administration because it is one application which is reside on one server, and from one screen I can manage everything. From one menu here, I can find IPS, firewall, logging, and all this stuff, and I can do the configuration. Number two, the licenses, it will be, of course, cheap. Because if it's one product, usually it is single license. Then, or even if it's multiple license, it will not be expensive as multiple products. Then this again, it will be somehow cost. Easy administration, license cheap. Also, there is another point which it will performance, because if it always you will do all the performance check on one machine, it will be somehow better than going on a different machines. If you go through a different machines, then it will be somehow slow. And believe it or not, gentlemen, in some locations, I found that the security solutions, it will cause network delay, internet network delay. Yes, internet network delay. I had this experience before, and when we make the assessment, we found that it's due to the security controls. But by the end of the day, the management, they mentioned that this is acceptable, and even if there is a delay for a little bit, we don't care. This is very important for us because this will affect our reputation. When we point here, what the best solution, which I like, that I like to have separate solutions. Why a separate solution? Although this is not some of the administrators, they will not like this, and even you will find some others. No, this it's not the recommended, and so on. Although frankly speaking, I don't care about these opinions, but from my point of view, as I told you, this is from Osama. It is not something standard, but this is from my experience. Number one, you will have specializations, gentlemen. Right? Specialization is very important. I will have a dedicated firewall from someone who will provide me best performance, best checking. I will have the anti-malware from companies which are professional. I will provide the logging from someone who is professional and so on. This number two. Number one, sorry. Number two, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you all in one box, it is compromised, then this means that all the services are compromised. If all in one, yani for example, let's say, for example, I'm not saying that these products are bad. I'm not saying like that. I'm not saying like that. I'm saying, for example, I don't want to mention names because this it will not be good. Let's say next generation firewall. Next generation firewall. If this device it's compromised RAM or processor, then this means that whatever any features, IPS, IDS, firewall, VPN, whatever any security feature, it will be compromised. Why? Because by the end of the day, it's RAM and processor. It's a computing component. When it's compromised. Then if the next generation firewall, which you are using, it is a single device, and when we will ask you as auditor, do you have a firewall? Yes, I have a firewall. I have IPS, I have IDS, I have VPN, I have IPsec, I have it, I have, and I have. But by the end of the day, all these devices, if it's affected, or I mean, if it's compromised, then all the services in the same channel, it will be, I mean, it will be compromised as well. Point number three, that you will, as we mentioned, the specialization, and you will have better protection, or in other words, which we are calling defense in depth. Defense in depth, this it's a very popular expression in the security field, where the security it is split into multiple layers. When if there is a first layer compromised, the second it will take over, if the second or third one, and so on. And of course, when we are saying that it will take over, it does not mean that the hacker he will not be able to reach the servers or the resources. He can reach it, but at least when one of the layers it will be compromised, it should send some alerts, SMS, whatever, into the administrator, then we can take an action. Even if this action it will that I will disconnect the server from the internet. And even if I don't have anything, and this hacker is very smart, and I'm not able to provide any solution right now for this problem, then disable from the internet. Disable it from the internet. At least this it will give you the chance to work out a solution to stop this. Then this is my opinion as a security consultant related to the security controls. This is not only applied for the jump server, this it will be applied for whatever. And if you tell me I want to protect a data center, I want to protect the network, I want, the concept it will be the same. Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions? Okay. Then now I think we can start our session for the module number 3 for the audit mechanisms. Today we will start the audit mechanisms. Of course, gentlemen, audit, it is I don't want to say complicated. It's not complicated, but complex subject. Because audit, we have a lot of things which we have to be done. You have to make planning. You have to make an audit program. You have to define the reasons for the audit. You have to define what will be the audit methodology. You have to define what are the services. You have to take an approval from the management and so on. Of course, CCSP, it will not cover this, and it is not required from you to understand all this information, but it is important to understand some important definitions. What is the importance of audit bed? It is ensuring compliance with your policy, procedures, regulations, standards, and so on. Because you may have a policy, and unfortunately, in some situation, when you will go and ask some organization, do you have a security policy? Yes, of course, we have. Then, if you will ask anyone about the security policy, you will find that this security policy, it's not applied at all. Then this means that if you have any internal audit, it will fail because it is not compliance with the security policy, and it is not matching with the internal policy. Then, what are the steps for the auditing? Very, very shallow definition or steps for the from the CCSP that you have to define, you have to analyze the security control requirements. What are the security control requirements? You have to check the configuration of the security controls. You have to check the internal policies. This information you have to collect it. Of course, then you have to collect the logs, to check the logs as well, and screenshots if it's possible, some type of data as well. And you have to compare all these outputs from the audit with the internal security policy or policies, standards, and compliance. Not compliance, I mean regulations. Then, if whatever you find here matching what is defined here, there are matching here, then this means that you are compliant. If it's not, there is a difference between what did you find live and what do you have as planned, then this means that you are incompliant. In other words, we will say it is a findings. And usually when I hear this word, I feel that I have something in my chest because I know that it's a problem and we have to work to understand what is the real problem is. Auditing in normal data centers, it is piece of cake. It's very simple. I have a data center, I have my data, I have my servers, I have my boundaries, I have my storage, I have everything, and I know its location, data locations, application locations, and I can make the exercise very easy. Even if the data is huge, but again, it is under my control and I can do the exercise very simple, not simple, but at least accurate as much as I can. In the cloud infrastructure, the scenario, it is totally different. Why? Due to many reasons. Number one, large amount of data. and not just amount of data, it is distributed data. Distributed data. Why? Because as I told you, for example, AWS, according to my information, till last course I attended for AWS, it was in 2022. We have 54 data centers distributed all over the world, and we are developing new data centers. When the data, it can be here or there, we are not sure. Why? Because as I told you, this it can be for the redundancy, this it can be for backup, whatever it is. When you have a large amount of data, they are distributed in a lot of locations across data centers. Number two, one of the most critical problems that the data distributed across multiple countries. يعني the data center, you may have a data center in the same country, but if it can be in multiple countries, and consequently this it will be different jurisdictions. Then each country, they have their own rules, and as we mentioned before, in some situations there may be some what we can say, the contradiction, maybe, as we can say, contradiction. In some situation, it's saying data, privacy data, it should be deleted after 3 years. In maybe other country, it's saying 5 years, and so on. We have another challenge with the hosting model. Is it yes, says, BES, and so on. Of course, as you know, in for example, when you will have SaaS and you are doing the auditing, this it's really challenges, because the server which you are audited now in a data center, after 1 minute, you are not sure that it is still reside in the same data center. It may be failed, failed over into another data center. Why? For any reasons, maybe host maintenance, maybe performance, maybe scalability, maybe vertical scalability, and so on. Or horizontal scalability, and so on. Then there are a lot of challenges. Right. What is the solution? Auditing, it's very important. And you are, as organization, you are subject for auditing. Even if you are not subject for auditing for any standards as ISO 27001, as 22301, as NIST, as NCA compliance, as BCI DSS, as HIPAA, all these, we are required auditing. We will not allow you to pass the certification test without the proper auditing for all these services. Then what we have to do? Well, this means that we have to drop the cloud solution? No, because again, we want to save some money for the organization. And what is the alternative? The alternative is the magic word. Is the magic word. What is it? The contract and the SLA agreement. Contract and SLA agreement. This very important, gentlemen. You have to provide this very clear in your service level agreement. You have to define what are the requirements for all this information. Mainly, you have to define a very clear RACI. You have to define a very clear RACI. Who is accountable for what? Who is responsible for what he should do, what he should configure. If there is any audit, how the cloud service provider will be agree with the cloud service customer and the auditor when they will provide them the data when it is required, how they will provide the cloud service provider the audit reports or evidence or tools, or in some situation they may say, okay, gentlemen, there is no need to make this audit check at all, because this cloud service provider, he provide a SOC 2 report or a SOC 1 report, or he is already ISO 27001 certified, and so on. Then this, it will be as a replacement for the these audits, and there may be no need for it. But it is very important to keep in your mind that you have to take this in your consideration. I want to inform you, in some situation, you may have the cloud service provider, especially the international cloud service providers as Google, Amazon, Azure, and so on. They are providing some auditing tools. By the way, when we say auditing tools, it will be something like reports, that it will print some reports which are considered by the external auditors. When this, it can be considered as data collection tools or auditing tools. When these tools, it can be provided by the self-service or the portal, the cloud service provider portal. This, again, it will be very important where you should make sure that you are collecting this information. Then you have to think how to think about the log collection. Unfortunately, in some organization, they want to have a SIM solution on site. They want to have a SIM solution on site. When this means that they need to have the logs from their clouds environment to the SIM server reside in their data centers. Well, this is very important to understand what the nature of the log collection. Log collection related to YAS, SAS and BAS, it will be totally different. Why? Because in the ES, you will have the most available log collection. Why? Because the log collection, what do you have? As you remember when we mentioned that you will have the network, then you will have the servers, then you will have the operating systems, then you will have the, if you have programming language, then it will be considered as a platform. Then you will have the applications. And finally, you will have the layer of data. In the ES, these two enter the cloud service provider, but these, they are yours. When this, it will be very easy. If you are having these under your control, you can define the management, your management server or the SIM IP address server that the data, it will be collected. But this, it's very important. Again, it should work with the cloud service provider. Why? It depends upon your transactions. If you have a lot of transactions and your data are the logs are huge, then this, it can create a bottleneck or a burden on the network, and in some situation it may affect your service as well, not only the other tenants. When you have to work with the cloud service provider, you may agree with him that he can send it to you as patches at 12 a.m. Send all the data or whatever. It depends upon the agreement. This is related for the SAS. When we come to the matter of the PAS, it will be something, the logs, it will be little bit. Why it will be little bit? Because you will have, these are under the level of the cloud service provider. You have to arrange with the cloud service provider to send you some logs. And this is very critical. Why? Because whatever any under the control of the cloud service provider, he will tell you, I am really sorry, I will not be able to split all your logs from the other tenants. And he have to work on these logs, then he will be able to split it and send you the logs which related to you. And this, by the way, it's not easy, because the one host which is distributed into multiple VMs, how can I send you information about the host? And by the end of the day, do you think that I am crazy to send you logs about my host server? This, again, it's not easy. Well, all this should be very clear with your cloud service provider during the SLA agreement. Gentlemen, migration data from data center into cloud service provider, it's not a forklift. It's not just, yalla, let's move the data, put it on the cloud, congratulations, we are done. No, believe it or not, we have a lot of our customers, they are planning to get the applications back into on-prem because they faced a lot of problems on the cloud and it was not working. And I will mention this later, especially in the module of the application where I will explain to you why this will not work. But it is very important to keep it in your mind. And frankly speaking, if you moved your applications and services into the cloud and you did not configure a proper SLA and contract, I'm really sorry to tell you that you are in trouble. Just pray that everything it will go fine. Otherwise, he will tell you, I'm really sorry, I don't have anything to do for you. Especially, there are a lot of users and customers, unfortunately, they are not reading the default SLA, which you sign it with the cloud service customer. You may not read it. And by the end of the day, you will find the default SLA, it will just protect the cloud service provider, not you. Okay? So, now, as we mentioned that we logs
Sir.
and services.
Sir, I have a question on the SIEM logs. So the SIEM logs from a cloud service provider will have multiple tenants. And suppose as a customer, if I want to have access to the SIEM logs, will the cloud service provider curtail access only to the logs pertaining to me? Because I'm not supposed to see other customers' logs.
Okay, just here, if you note that we spoke about the same on-prem. This, I mean the same on-prem. But if you mention that, and this is valid also, your cloud service provider, they have a same solution. It can happen. And you want to have an access for it, this it will be great. And this it will save money for you. You have SIM as a service. Of course, this it will be built on the virtual machines and all this stuff. And of course, he will not provide you an access for the other tenants. There is no way for this. He will create a one VM. He will give you an instance for it. He will give you a database instance for it, and you will be able to manage your SIM based on the applications and the IP addresses defined in your SIM.
Okay.
Of course, as we mentioned in the SIM, this you need the correlation, you need the packet capturing, and so on, and all these features are we mentioned very clear in the SIM when we spoke about the SIM, and the same concepts for the SIM it will be applied here. You may have your own SIM solution. You may need to have the SIM solution as a part from the cloud service provider. It depends upon your requirements and needs and your investment. In some situation, you are saying, gentlemen, I bought a license for 3 years for a SIM solution, and I don't want to just drop it and pay for another SIM solution from the cloud service provider. Okay, you can utilize the one which you have it for 2 additional 2 years, just install on one VMs and it can work, and this it will be a good thing. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Now we will discuss another important issue, the business continuity, planning of business continuity, and the disaster recovery. Okay. Here, gentlemen, you have to understand what do you mean. We mean that how we can use the cloud in business continuity and disaster recovery. This is what we are meaning. How we can utilize the cloud infrastructure in business continuity and disaster recovery. We have multiple scenarios. What are these scenarios? Scenario number 1, that your organization we have primary hosting or the operation environment in on-prem. it is the traditional data center يعني. Okay, this is the production. This is the production. And the DR, it's on the cloud. Okay, then this one of the options. And this option, it is a very cost-effective method. Why? Because you know that whatever you have here in the cloud, you will not pay money for it. It will be only pay as you use. Frankly speaking, gentlemen, this is not the real life. This is not the real life. Payment for cloud service provider, it has three different methods, which we call it pay as you use. Number two, it is a specific amount. You have to pay a specific amount or lease amount. Then in some situation, you may hear you have to lease some resources which you have to pay for it. But of course, without any discussion, this it will be better than having your own data center. Okay? Then this it will be a very cost-effective method, very cost-effective solution. This scenario number one. Scenario number two, that you may have the operation, it is in cloud service provider. You have the operation in a cloud service provider. And you have the DR in different cloud service provider. And this using multiple cloud service providers, they start now to hear a definition called hybrid cloud. This means that you are using more than one cloud service provider. Of course, you need orchestration, and these services, it will work on-prem with the different cloud service providers and so on. Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt here. Is it because when I'm using the other cloud service provider, let's say my current cloud service provider is AWS, and I'm using Azure actually as my business continuity and disaster recovery, will that not be said as multi-cloud rather than hybrid cloud? Because hybrid cloud isn't it that from the two service models from one particular cloud service provider?
No, it can be the same model. It can be the same model. I can understand what you are saying. You say that, for example, if you have one cloud service provider here, and you have, for example, ES, and you have other cloud service provider, and you have, for example, PaaS, and you make integration between them, right?
Correct. So this is two service providers, right?
Usually no. Right? Usually no. Because if you will have multiple cloud service provider, in some situation, you may have the, usually we are using this as a SaaS, and both of them working together. But we are using this scenario for redundancy, but they are active. This is considered as a hybrid cloud. This, in some situation, hybrid people, they are saying, okay, because we are considered different models. In some situation, no, it can be the same model. It can be the same model in some situation.
Okay, sir. Then I think can you please explain me what is the difference between a multi-cloud and a hybrid cloud? I was under the impression hybrid cloud, it has to be necessarily
No,
with one customer, with one cloud service provider.
It is the same. Multi-cloud or hybrid cloud, but it is not only like this. It can be different cloud service providers or on-prem as well. On-prem, it can be included here. For example, the hybrid model, it can be the on-prem, and I have another model in the cloud service provider. This it will be hybrid cloud. It's considered as a hybrid model, not hybrid cloud, hybrid model. But if you have another cloud service provider here, this it will be the hybrid cloud. Then multiple or hybrid, but hybrid cloud, this is the expression which we start to hear since 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Okay. It is very important, gentlemen. Now we had 3 scenarios, and please remember these scenarios. You have your data center on-prem, and you have the cloud service provider as a cloud as a DR, or you have the. I think we did not speak about the third one, right? We didn't explain the third one. We did not speak about the third one. When the operation on one cloud service provider, the DR on the second one, or the third one, where application or production, it is on a cloud service provider, and there is another model in the DR as other model or other hosting model with the same cloud service provider. What do you mean? How it will work like that? What do you mean by hosting different hosting model with the cloud service provider? For example, I have ES. I have with the cloud service provider, I have ES. Everything is up and running, and I have control over servers and everything on the servers. I rented from the cloud service provider. But when there was a problem or whatever, then I can say that it will move into CS, for example. Then this it will be considered as the DR. Then when the production it will come up and running again, it will revert back to the original model which I have. This is very important to understand how the cloud it will be utilized in the cloud service provider. I mean in the business continuity and DR, but it is very important again to understand the terminology of the clouds of the business continuity. This is very important. Definitions which we explained it before as the RBO, RTO, and RSL. These are very important. What do you mean by these terminologies? These terminologies, gentlemen, suppose that I will try to give you one simple scenario. Suppose that now it is 12 a.m. When we start a backup process, the backup process, it will take 2 hours. Then now it is 2 a.m. Now it is 2 a.m. Then next day at 7:30, people start come to the office to work. And at 10 a.m., we had a disaster here. Everything is down. Everything is down. We start to work and to move the services into the DR, and at let's say 4 p.m. we have the DR site up and running. Okay, this is a scenario which happened. How we can implement the RTO, RBO, RSL here? What is RBO? RBO, it is recovery point objective. What is the recovery point objective? Take care, because here it may be confusion. RBO, it is amount of data. It's amount of data which a company can maintain its operation without affecting its functionality or operations. I lost this amount of data and this, it will not be a problem. Why? Let's try to apply it here. Okay. Now at this moment, I made a backup. That's fine. Then here from 7:30 till 10 o'clock, people are working for this period, which is considered as 2.5 hours. They entered around 100K data, maybe in form of invoices, maybe in form of transactions, maybe whatever it is. Then when the data is down and they start to work here, they recovered the backup which we are using here. Then when the backup it is installed here, what about this data, gentlemen? What happened to this data in the DR? What happened for this data in the DR? Anyone alive?
Yes.
Yes.
What happened for this data?
This data got lost actually. The amount of
Yes, it is got lost because now when I recovered the data, which I made a backup for it at 12 a.m. But the staff we are working from 7:30 to 10. I'm really sorry. I did not make a backup for this data, but I lost it. But the management, they said, okay, it is not a big issue. Why? Because it's a matter of 100K when we can let the operators work on it. This amount of data, gentlemen, which we call it RBO. This amount of data, which we call it RBO. We have the RTO, which is recovery time objective.
Okay.
What is recovery time objective? This is the amount of what? Of not
Downtime.
data. It is not data here. Here, time. Amount of time. It is the period of the time where the operation can continue without affecting the goals and objectives of the organization. Where the organization, it can continue without any problem. The RTO, this is the RTO. This is the RTO. Why? It starts here down and it took from 7th, sorry, gentlemen, no, this is wrong. I think you are sleeping also because no one gave any comment about this. It's from here to there. This is the RTO. It is from the moment where we had the disaster. This period, we did not have any IT up and running at all. They may working in manual or everything, it's not working. We are just waiting the data center to be recovered and so on. The last definition, it will be the RSL. What is the RSL? It is recovery service level. What is the recovery service level? This is the percentage of the total production service which will be provided in the data center. What do you mean? I mean in the DR side. What do you mean? For example, I have a service which it supports 1,000 users. I said, I don't want to migrate the service into the DR to support 1,000 users because this it will be very expensive. Then what do you require? I want to support only 500 users. Then this it will save 50% of the cost, servers, storage, and so on. Well, this means that you will say, okay, when we are in disaster, we don't think that all the people be required to work online, and we can assign the responsibilities for the important users and the operators only. Then this it will be okay with us, the RSL. This it will be okay for us. Okay? I am repeating here, gentlemen, and I am reading this from multiple books from for CCSB. Be sure to know the difference between these three concepts and to recognize them by their abbreviations. He may not to tell recovery point objective. He may say RBO. He may not ask RSL. He may recovery service level. Sometimes he may smart and play with you that he give you a scenario and he will not say recovery service level. He will tell you the management decide to support 50% or 30% of the users only, and so on. Then whatever the way to understand the or to memorize the name, objective, abbreviations, and the physical meaning or the definition. This is very important for the exam. We are playing with this a lot. Okay? Any
Yes.
questions?
Sir, one question. So between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., I am assuming that maybe around at 2 a.m. Sorry, 2 p.m. The system got restored, and however, actually for the actual the systems to be on production, it took another 2 hours. So that's the complete downtime.
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. As a management or as a user, I don't know. Only the thing which I know it that at 4 a.m. as a user, I was able to log into the system. That's it.
Okay.
But that we use, it was at 2 a.m. It was recovered. Then there is a backup recovery, or I don't know what are the steps. This is not. I'm not discussing the DR service plan right now. But
Okay.
the most important CCSB understand what is the RTO. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I think we deserve a break because I feel that you.
Sir, I was just going through the book. I think the book actually specifies, if you see my chat actually on the Zoom, this is what the book is talking about with respect to multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. So for multi-cloud, it is saying that whenever there are two vendors, I mean to say whenever there are two service providers, that is actually referred to as multi-cloud.
This which page?
Sorry?
Send me the page number on the WhatsApp and I will give you.
Okay, okay, sure.
Okay, that's fine. Then now I think we closed our previous session with a very important question about the business continuity, disaster recovery, and Mahmoud, he asked about the HA. Is HA considered as a part of business continuity or disaster recovery, redundancy, and all this stuff? This is a very important question, and there are a lot of confusion related to these items. To understand this in more details, gentlemen, I want to take every expression and understand it in a separate way. What is the definition of business continuity? Business continuity means that the operations of the organization's services and operations will continue without any disruption. Without any disruption. Without any disruption. This disruption, it can be disaster and it cannot be a disaster. For example, you have a data center, you have a core switch, the core switch is down. And this means that the whole network is down because you don't have another standby or redundant unit. When the people, they said, okay, we will not allow the operation to be stopped, but we will, for example, let's say that this organization, we are selling products. When they said, instead of printing the invoice to the customer, I will issue a manual invoice for the customer. And by the end of the day, from business point of view, the operation is continued and the business is continued in a different form. It's not in IT at all. That's fine, but still it is a business continuity. You are continue your business. Business continuity also, it's caring not only for disaster. It may be no a disaster. For example, in Saudi Arabia, suppose that we are saying that we had a problem with Skiko, which is the power source for electricity in Saudi Arabia. We have a problem with their transformers in Eastern province, for example. When these transformers are not working for any reasons and power is disabled. This is very rare, but it can be happening, for example. Then if it will happen, it's not a disaster for the company itself. This it's considered as operation problem or whatever. But this is again, it's a problem. We want the operation to continue. Especially, I don't know for how long the operation it will be down. They said, okay, it may be down for 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 day, 2 days. This it can be a problem. But in this case, what they have to do, they have to work with generator, for example. When now you are running a business continuity, or they will say, okay, we don't have the generator, or we may have the generator and it will take only 2 or 3 hours, but again, I will not be able to keep the tanks full and I have to move into manual. And this what we call business continuity. It can be due to a disaster, it can be operational problem, it can be whatever, anything. Is HA redundancy DR part of business continuity? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When we're saying business continuity, whatever, anything, it will keep the business up and running will be a part of the business continuity. But disaster recovery, it has a special case. Why? Because the disaster recovery, we are saying that this when there is a real disaster happened, it may be, and of course, you know, when we are studying the reasons of disaster recovery, it can be human-based or natural-based. It depends. Terrorists, for example, it can be earthquake, whatever it is. When these are the points here, the disaster recovery, it is caring about failover the services into a remote site or a far away site where there is a disaster it happened. Of course, when I speak about disaster recovery, I will not tell you, for example, let's do the disaster recovery in the next door or in the next street or whatever. Usually, I am saying you have to choose something very far away, and very far away to make sure that the environmental circumstances, it will not affect the DR side as well. There is a confusing point which people, we are trying to play with it. We are saying, you are saying that HA, it's a part of business continuity, right? Yes, it is. No, it is not. Why? When we will ask you a question, it acts as entrapment, and he is a smart person. That do you include the HA requirements in a business continuity plan? Of course not. I will not. When it is not a part of business continuity plan. Of course, this it's not the right answer. And yes, I am not including the HA in business continuity plan, but still it is under the umbrella of the business continuity plan. In business continuity plan, we have a lot of concepts. Business continuity plan, gentlemen, it should include the disaster recovery. It should include the emergency planning. It should include the crisis, not planning. It's not, let's call it in a proper way, emergency management. Crisis management. These are the titles which it should appear in the business continuity plan. HA redundancy. Why it's not coming here in the business continuity planning? Why it's not coming in business continuity planning? Because usually we are considered the HA and redundancy and all these things a part of operational environment. Operational environment. Then this it's not a business continuity planning. It's operational environment. This is the reason why HA it's not coming in, or it's not mentioned in the business continuity plan. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, gentlemen, let's now continue our module 3 in the CCSP course for the infrastructure security. We are speaking about till now we are speaking about the business continuity planning and disaster recovery and how we can utilize the cloud environment in a business continuity planning and what will be the points which we have to take at our consideration. Of course, one of the main things which is considered our Bible in the security, it is understanding risks. Understanding risks. What are the risks which can happen? There are a lot of risks. It may be natural disasters. It can be non-natural or human disasters. It can be equipment failures. It can be utility disruptions, as internet failure, power failure, and so on. A lot of things. But we have some points which you have to understand, and this it will be very important, and you have to take it in your consideration. Number one, change in location. Change in location, this is very important, gentlemen, especially from the point of view of compliance. Because now if you are working in Saudi Arabia and you are under NCA regulations, you are happy, everything is great, you don't have any problem and so on, then suddenly you move to another area, there may be a different regulations. Then you have to understand very carefully. Then you may ask, is it possible to know where the data is migrated, or it is something related to the cloud service provider? This is a good question. And I will tell you, if you are a small organization and you are not caring about the compliance and all this stuff, then it will not make any difference for you. Let him to migrate it even into the hell. I don't care. But if you are a big organization, compliance, it's a matter for you, then no, it must be very clear, and you have to mention this in SLA. And data, it should not be away of these locations. Normally, in the normal operation, it should be, for example, in Saudi Arabia. And for example, when we are having any contracts with Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia's cloud service provider, we have to mention the production, it may be in Riyadh. And if we have any disaster, it will be moved into Jeddah, for example. Data, it should not be outside Saudi Arabia and all this stuff. Also, you have to keep in your consideration a very, very, very important point, which it may affect the performance. What is it? It is the latency. Latency, it can affect the performance of your application. Latency, it can affect the performance of your application. You have an environment, and we are living in Saudi Arabia, everything is running great. You have the infrastructure in Riyadh, your head office is in Riyadh, and you have some small offices scattered across the kingdom. It may be 2 or 3 or 4 connections from each office, remote offices concurrently. It's not a big issue, but suddenly the disaster recovery side is up and running due to a failure in the production side, and the 90% of the users from Riyadh, they will be connected into Jeddah, and this it's almost 1,000 kilometers difference between the two cities, and internet hubs between the two locations are complicated. There may be some delay, and this it may affect the operation, and they may affect the performance of the application. Then again, this it can be one of the problems, especially if you are using encryption. If you are using encryption, because we know that the encryption it consumes a lot of the bandwidth, then it can be one of these. Another,
I have a question, Mr. Usama here, please.
Sure.
Okay, we mentioned change in location. Let's say Azure or AWS just open a data center in Emirate, in UAE, in Dubai. Okay, now they said we will close that and open a new one in Abu Dhabi, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Here is the cloud service provider obligate to tell us that he will do that, or no? He doesn't need to inform us.
From Dubai into
Abu Dhabi or even Egypt or India, anyway.
Egypt, here it will be different.
Okay.
It's the same country. When you are in the same jurisdiction, when laws and everything, it will be applied. Then what will make the difference between Dubai or Abu Dhabi for you?
Maybe they have different laws.
Sorry?
Maybe they have different laws. I don't know.
Yes, you are right. If you mean performance of the application, yes, you are right. It may affect the performance, but again, it will not critical. But again, yes, you are right. Of course, you have the right to know. This it will not make regulation or laws or compliance issues. It can make a performance laws. Is it mandatory to tell you or not? Again, I will tell you it depends on the service level agreement between you and him. In some of the cloud service provider, they mentioned that they have the rights to change the environment as they want, based on the requirements. If you have SLA and you mentioned that if you will make these changes, yes, of course. But if you will move from Emirates to Egypt, no, please hold on. This is a crisis for me. You are moving from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. There may be different rules, different policies, different standards, laws and regulations. At least the privacy laws, it will be totally different, and I may not be compliance in Egypt with my data. Then he must tell you. In this case, he must tell you.
Okay,
But
so here we mean that it's different, like countries or different jurisdiction, not in the same availability zone or area or something like that.
yes, you are right.
Okay.
But again, the point which you highlight before, if it's related to performance, yes, it is a valid point. Yes, it is a valid point. It can be in the same country, but if you are speaking about Saudi Arabia, for example, in Saudi Arabia, it's a huge country. If you are speaking about the distance between east and west, it is almost 1,700 kilometers. And if you will speak about the distance between north and south, it is almost 30,000 kilometers. When if there is any cloud service providers distributed in this area, of course there will be some difference, especially if your application depends upon real traffic or real-time traffic, as Team, as Zoom, as whatever any collaboration tool. Then again, my point, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust the cloud service provider. I have to mention all these points in my service level agreement. I have to make it very clear.
Okay.
By the end of the day, if you faced any problem, if you are in a respectable company, which they will come and ask you, did you do your exercise? Yes, I did my due diligence. Even if it's in a very poor country, at least you will be in a good shape in front of your organization's manager.
Okay, one last thing here, please.
Sure.
Right now, a practical scenario is happening with us, my company, that we have Oracle build a data center in Jeddah. Now they are building the new data center in Neom. Okay, so they told us that, would you like to move your data from Jeddah to Neom? And the management with us said yes. Okay, but with my manager, I don't see he have SLA or anything. Yani, where is that in the contract? Should be mentioned between us as a company and the cloud service provider, or it's already there mentioned on the website when you like next agree condition and terms next. Where is exactly it should mention? It should be mentioned.
Grant the SLA and read it.
On the website, on their website, right?
Yes. لا
Okay.
لا, not on their website. When you made an agreement with them from scratch, you did not have SLA signed by you and by the organization.
No, we have like RFP, and they
RFP, it is a request for proposal. It's not SLA.
and we
And
have
this means that you don't have. Then, unfortunately, you have to follow the standard one. They may say that we are able to move the data, we are able to move the service and all this stuff. Then, unfortunately, you don't have anything to do here. But if you have a service level agreement, then you have to refer for it and read. Do you have the right? Do they have the right to move it or not? And again, I did not understand the question properly. Did they ask you, do you want to move, or they will just they tell you that we will move?
no, they gave us the option. They said we will build
If they
a
give
new
you the
one in Neom.
option, then you have to mention to your management, gentlemen, please hold on. We have to do an assessment.
Hmm.
We have to do an assessment. What is the difference between these things? At least, please, what is the round time trip? How many milliseconds from our office to Neom, or from our office to Jeddah? To understand if this it will affect our performance or not.
So they should provide that information, right?
Sorry?
They should provide that
They
information.
must provide. It's
Mm.
your right. Of course, you must provide. Unfortunately, they have the experience that customers, we don't understand. Yani,
Yes, yes.
this my experience when I worked with SABIC. In SABIC, we are not bypassing these things like that. No, we have to, and especially I am working in the architecture. Then when any solution it will come, we are asking these questions very clear. Hold on, what is the round time trip round trip time? Well, how many milliseconds? What is the difference? How many hubs it will move till will reach? And so I have to understand it. I have collaboration, I have videos, I have a lot of presence and so on. And this will make the difference. And you have to make the assessment on what are the factors which you have to take it in your consideration in the assessment. Type of your application, if you are telling me email, applications, ERP, so on, so is not a big issue. When this in milliseconds, it will not make any difference at all. Then you have to check the services, you have to check the infrastructure, you have to check the redundancy. Of course, if you are moving into a new one, of course, the new data center, we have redundancy, but there may be say, yes, we have the new data center, but in the future, we will have the redundancy. Okay, that's great. You moved into Neom, but our data, it will be copied in Jeddah as well. Then if you faced any problem in Neom, when the other data center, it will take over. Then you have to do your exercise. You have to make the assessment. Is it workable to move? Suppose that they tell you no redundancy, it will, or I mean DR, it will be after 1 year, for example. Then no, I don't want it, because if the data it will be down now, then what about the DR? I will stay for 1 hour or 2 hours or maybe 1 day down. Then this it will be a problem. Okay.
Okay, actually, that's very helpful, because right now we already purchased the hardware from them,
And
we
my
have it there.
advice, be very aggressive. It's your guy to understand. But the salesman, which or account manager, which you deal with him, he will tell you, oh, we are great, we are the best company in the world. Although, by the way, Oracle, they are really respected. Oracle, they
Okay,
are
and
really
what?
respectful. If you are speaking about STC or mobile or whatever, and I am really sorry to mention by name, I don't like this, but this is advice from someone who work in this field. I know that these infrastructures, it's not strong enough, and you have to do really a good exercise. We have everything, whatever you need, we have everything. And when you start to ask deep detailed questions, you will find that the services are not up on track.
Exactly. This
It
is
is
that what
your,
happened with us.
sorry?
This happened with us actually because we moved
This is
from
happening with all the customers.
yeah.
This happened with all the customers, not you, not me, it's all the customers. Be very aggressive. It is your guy to understand. And usually we are saying if the cloud service provider or internet service provider, they will not provide you the required information, drop it. Drop it. This for your sake. As I told you in since 1 hour, I know some of our customers, they are moving back into on-prem due to the problems which they faced from the cloud service provider. Okay. And of course, there is no need to tell you if you need any advice or anything, or you want to open a session with me for something like that, we can take it offline. We can have a Zoom meeting for 1 hour and we can discuss this in more.
I know. I really know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Okay, gentlemen, let's go back to the option number 2 or the risks which you have to consider. What are these risks? Maintenance redundancy. Frankly speaking, I am not caring about this. What do you mean by maintenance redundancy? If I want to make a maintenance for a server, I want to upload a batch, I want to upload hardware batch, I want to make a backup, whatever, then this means that I must have a redundancy device. Then I will make the production one standby and the standby as a production one. Then this means that I can make all the maintenance without affecting the operation. And of course, gentlemen, most of the VMs, 99.999, we will have multiple hosts where VMs it can be moved and so on. Then it will be normal. And but anyway, you have to understand. And by the way, it's an important point. You may find a question for it in the exam, but I'm telling you just only for your practical experience. But from exam, it is important. Also, you have to take the consideration failover mechanisms. And failover mechanisms, we have a lot of failover mechanisms. It can be in the form of cluster, where two servers are configured together to be represented as one single server. It can be a load balancer, which it's divide the load into multiple servers. Then if one of them is down, it will be eliminated and it will take over the others. It can be a failover side, which is a DR side or another side for the connectivity. It can be the HA and redundancy and so on. Then whatever any failover mechanisms which you can think about it, either hardware or software. Also, there is another point which, frankly speaking, when I read this in 2016 during my preparation for my exam, I did not understand it very well. But one of the scenarios gave me the definition or the feeling of the risk. Bringing services online. When to bring service online. In the DR, it means. There are a lot of people, they are saying, wow, we have automated DR. By the way, gentlemen, automated DR, it's not recommended. Automated DR, it is not recommended. Automated HA, it is recommended. Automated DR, it's not recommended. Why? Because just to migrate or fail over data from the production into the DR side and fail back the service again, it has a lot of steps, and it will be very difficult. But the HA, it can run transparent and you don't feel it. Let me give you an example. You have one load balancer here. You have multiple servers. and these servers may be in one locations, two different locations. And whatever the distance may be, 100 kilometers or whatever, with a fiber cable, for example. The load balancer, it starts to distribute the traffic. When today we are working in this location, but for some reason it moved here. This will be done transparent for the user. He does not know anything, and the data it will be up and running. And the servers usually we are working with a storage here, and we everything is running great without any problems. And this it will be great when I mean redundancy or automatic redundancy here as HA, this will be great. But for DR, I highly recommend to do it manual. I highly recommend to do it manual. What do you mean by manual? That we usually, if I type www.xyz.com, this is a website for my organization. It will be mapped into one in the DNS server. This DNS server, I can host it myself or in a cloud service provider. When there is any disaster, I have to log in manually, change it from 1.1.1 into 1.2.2.2, which is the IP address of the DR and this production, and this it will be manual. Because it is not easy, it is a disaster. It's really headache. If you have the traffic, it's moved from the production into the DR automatic. To fill over the service, you need a lot of efforts to synchronize the data pack again. This is not easy. This is a really disaster. When manual, it is highly recommended. This you have to make it very sure with it. Another important feature here also, it is the working with external service or functionality with external service. What do you mean by external service? With external service, then this which we call it integration, You may have a service. This service want to send SMS 2FA. Let's say about the 2FA. Whatever any service you have in your organization and it want to send 2FA, then this means that it should be integrated with the 2FA server software, with the SMS server, and so on. Then if you are moving or fail over the service from your production into the DR, make sure that all these services and the external services are migrated as well, and it is ready to be moved as well. Otherwise, you will face a problem and your operations, it will not be complete. Just imagine you forgot the DR. You forgot the 2FA in the DR, and the application required 2FA. What will happen? User will not be able to log in. Why? Because when he log in, he is expected to, the application expected one-time password, but there is no interaction between, or there is no connection between the application and the server, and the user is waiting on his SMS, nothing come to his machine, and the application is waiting for one-time password, it's done. 2FA, it is not 2FA, it is single FA. It's only single factor authentication when it is not working. Then you have to make sure that it's very important that all the information will be integrated together. Then we will speak about a very important concept for the BCDR. We call it BCDR, Business Continued Disaster Recovery Continual Process. And of course, gentlemen, when we'll speak about the usually the security.
Sir.
Okay.
Sir, I'm just trying to still think on that point when you said that the disaster recovery has to be manual and not automated. What could be one specific instance, if you could just explain with an example that by automating the DR actually, again in DR, again, I'm specifically talking about backup and retrieval of data. What could be a danger?
As I mentioned, now we are working. If it's automatic, it will change the IP address and it will move into the production DR. User we will work on the DR. When it return back into the disaster, because it's automatic, whatever there is any trigger, there may be some how the cluster it will work. Cluster, if you have two servers, how the cluster it will work. It will send something called keep alive signals. When this is the production, this is the DR. The DR it will send to production. If it will receive a return packet, it will know that it's up. After some time, send the packet, return, okay. Then send within a specific period, I did not return. There is no return. Then I will send again, usually 3 times. If there is no traffic back, then it will consider production is down, and this one it will take over. When user
Okay.
now, when we will connect here, we will work here and update the storage here.
Okay, got it. Now I understood it much clearer. Okay.
Okay, I will continue it for the others as well. But now the data it's went here. Okay, that's fine. But what will happen if it's moved again back? When there will be some data, it will come here into this storage. When I have the data here, it will be different. It's a crisis, because if I have something like that, I have to terminate the operation in the production till I will make a fail back of the service into the production to make sure that everything is sync application, sync data, sync, and so on. Okay.
This
In the
is a
BCD,
truly disaster.
yes.
No, I mean, this is a truly disaster because we have the same module, we already implemented and everything, but we haven't, I didn't even, or we all as a team didn't even think about that. If we use the DR, how are we going to sync the data back?
Yes,
This
yes.
is, yeah, we,
Gentlemen, part of the disaster recovery, it is a feedback. Part of the disaster recovery plan of any service, it is a feedback. Yani when I review as an auditor a disaster recovery plan, I will search immediately for the failover procedure and the feedback procedure. If I did not find the feedback procedure, disqualified. Why? Because usually when you will speak with customers, will say, oh, automatic, it's great, I want everything automatic, and so on. We cannot imagine the cases and the problems. But you know, as happened now, Prem is saying, why? This is okay, why we cannot? I want to understand. Usually the customer is saying, no, I want automatic, I don't want anything manual, you don't want to do the job for me, and so on. But when we start to explain to him, oh, wow, yes, you're right. I may have misconfiguration between the two different devices, data storage, this will be a mess. Sometimes I will not be able to understand what is the difference. Here there is some changes, and there are other changes, and I don't know which is the master to where I can integrate both of them. These problems happened, and we saw it ourselves. We are trying to advise our customers. If they will understand, that's great. If it's not, I will do whatever you want, but I will not be responsible for it. I will put it as a risk, and I will ask him to accept the risk. If he'll accept it, then please don't come to me after that, because it's not my problem. It's okay. Now we will speak about the PCDR continual process. This is very simple, and I don't want, even they may not mention it in just 5-6 lines for each one of them. You have to define the scope. If you want to utilize the cloud service provider, define the scope. What do you mean by scope here, gentlemen? Scope, this is, by the way, gentlemen, as a security management, you have to understand what do you mean by scope and objective very clearly. Unfortunately, these two words, there are a lot of people, they don't understand these real concepts. And this is very important, very important. When we are saying what is the scope? A scope, it means what are the services or products which you want to move it into the cloud? Is it production? Is it disaster recovery? Is it backup? What are the servers which it will be moved? What are the applications which will be moved? Then you have to define what are the scope in that, what are the things which you have to concentrate on to be moved into the cloud. Okay? Then you have to gather what are the requirements. What is the RTO? What is the RBO? What is the service level agreement? And this information, it should be collected from the management. Also, you have to think, what are the regulations? What are the laws? What are the local regulations? Do we have any standards which we have to follow as ISO 27001, as CITSS, as HIBAA, and so on? Then this it will be considered as the requirements. Then make the analysis for all these things. There may be contradiction between these. Then we have to find which one it will be okay and which one it will be the secondary and which it will be the primary. We have to check that all these requirements, it will fit and it will be able to host it by the cloud service provider. You may say that, gentlemen, I want to be compliant with GDPR. Then the cloud service provider will tell you, I am really sorry, I am not certified GDPR. Ah, wait, we are in trouble here. Then we may drop this cloud service provider, for example. Also, we have to understand the risks. You have to make a risk assessment. Risk assessment, gentlemen, it is very, very important. Usually, we are doing risk assessment for every and all our decisions in our life. Believe it or not, gentlemen, all of you are you are residents in different countries. You may be Indians and living in USA or Egyptians and living in Saudi Arabia. All of us dreaming with the yearly vacation. We want to go to our countries, see our families, and so on. Do you think that this, you are doing a risk assessment in your mind without feel this? Did you know that? For example, I want to go on vacation. What are the risks? The flight may be down. I may die. I may lose my job. There may be a problem in my work, or and I will not be able to recover it. Then in some situation, you will say, okay, you are guide. If there is any problem and they will not wait for me for 1 month, okay, gentlemen, I will take my notebook and please give me a remote access. Then if you have any problem, then I will be able to log in through VPN and work it with you. This is a mitigation. It's a mitigation risk. I found the risk and I want to mitigate it. Why? I am afraid that there may be some problem and they will not wait for the 30 days for my vacation. I want to mitigate it. There may be a problem with the flight. It may fail. Yes, it may fail. And this is normal. What can I do? Even when I take my car from my home till I reach my work, I can make an accident. What can I do? I would say, no, I will not go to work because I may an accident. Then what is the action here for the risk? Accept. You will accept the risk. Okay? Yeah. Then this, you are risk assessment gentlemen. Risk assessment gentlemen, please try to attend the risk assessment course to understand the risk assessments. People who are working in security and they don't understand the risk assessments, please don't mention that you are working in security, because this is not the right approach at all. Okay, then what is the next phase? We mentioned that first phase that you have to define the scope. Second phase, you have to gather the requirements. Third phase, you have to analyze the requirements. Fourth phase, you have to analyze the risks. Then you have to make a design. You have to make a design for your solution. Design, it will include also service level agreements, contracts, policies, documentations, everything. You have to make a design for it. Then you have to make the implementation. This, it will be the next phase. You have to implement the plan which you design it. And of course, doing a plan, you have to test it. You mentioned that already we have the production in our PREM and the DR, it's in cloud service provider. Okay, let's shut down the on-prem and check. Are you will be able to achieve the RTO, RPO, RSL or not? If you will be able to fail over the service or not, what are the problems which you face? When you will make all these tests, of course, you will find some bugs in the plans. Then you have to correct these bugs and update the documentation and distribute the new documentation to the interested parties or the stakeholders. It may be management and your colleagues in the organization. Finally, reporting and revise. You have to report the findings to management, to the staff, to the stakeholders, and revise the plans to make sure that they are matching your needs, requirements, which are defined in the second phase. This was the end of our module for the infrastructure security. Do you have any questions?
I think, sir, on that example which you were telling about automated DR, I think one thing which I was able to relate, I think on the second point which you made, that suppose if I have very specific privacy requirements, data privacy requirements, and in case if the DR exactly, if there is an automated DR, this could probably lead me to a kind of a privacy breach.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the reasons where I will have to have the control. Probably not everything can be automated. I think it has to be, it's a more of subjective. So you will have to make an assessment and then exactly do it manually. Now I understand
Frankly
it.
speaking, PREM in DR, no, for myself, I'm telling for myself, because what I'm telling you depends upon my experience. I may be wrong. For DR, I don't want any automatic things at all.
Okay.
In HA, I don't want any manual thing at all. Because
Okay.
HA, it's in the same side. Everything it's the same in the same data center, maybe. But with DR, as you mentioned now, what will happen if the data is moved from USA into Saudi Arabia? What about the BII, the personal identification information? I will be in trouble. What about the HIPAA standard? All your medical information, it will be moved and it can be captured by internal militias, for example. What will happen? You will be in trouble. The USA authorities, it will not say that cloud service provider, this is from cloud service provider. They tell you, I'm really sorry, I don't know the cloud service provider. I know PREM's organization. This is the one which I have to deal with them. Okay.
Okay.
Any other
I have a
questions?
question. I have a question, Mr. Usama.
Go ahead.
In here it says it mentioned disaster recovery and business continuity strategy, right? This is a strategy to build your DR and the business continuity.
Yes.
Okay, this is part of like ISO 2002, ISO 2401, I think, right? Which is business continuity.
2401. I don't know what is this standard, Rahman.
There is ISO business continuity. I don't
لا
know.
ISO business continuity, it is not like that. ISO business continuity, it is 22301 2018. Yes,
Okay,
it
so
is. It is one of the mandatories, not يعني part, it is mandatory. Yeah.
so this is part of like a small part of that one, right?
Not small. It is the this which we build everything on this strategy.
Oh, so this strategy in detail in this process,
It
right?
acts as the security policy.
Mm.
It acts as a security policy. يعني you don't have a strategy, you don't have business continuity.
Yeah, but here it's for like cloud only or that strategy which we define the scope, gather requirement, stuff like that. This is for cloud only, and this one it's
It
for
is the same, exactly the same. Exactly the same. When I have a business continuity for my organization, it will not make any difference if you are hosted on-prem or on business continuity. Because now you may have one cloud service provider as production and another cloud service provider as disaster. What will happen if there will be some delay to move the data from here to there? You need the organization, they will tell you, okay, that's fine. We can understand very well that there will be some delay, maybe 2 or 3 hours. Okay, RTO, I can accept 2 or 3 hours. Or what about if you are a bank? Do you think that 2 hours it will be acceptable?
If I what? What if I what?
Bank, you are working in a bank.
Oh, on a bank. Oh, no,
financial institute. Do you think that this it will be acceptable?
No, it should be zero tolerance.
You are right. Zero RBO. Today I am running and suddenly it's down. Prem, he logged into his account and in disaster recovery and he did some transactions. He withdrew $1,000. Then in the DR it's up and running. They found that this $1,000 it's not withdrawal. It's in his account. It will never work. Then this means that you have to continue the operations. It may be manual. By the way, also, I don't know if this is the right place to mention this or not, because if you have one DR production and DR, the data is replicated, it will be on a periodic basis. But if you have a bank or something like that, they will have something called hot standby here, and data, it will be cached in this area, then it will be migrated into this area. Then if there is any drop, they will get all the updated data from here and the old data from here. There is some specific strategy based in a design like that. But these are the important issues which you have to take into consideration. By the way, 22301, it is a really good standard, and it will explain to you disaster, not disaster recovery as a management. It will tell you disaster recovery as a management. It will give you crisis management. It will give you recovery emergency management, and a lot of expressions and terminologies as RTO, RBO, NTRO, mean time between failure, and all these things which related to the business continuity.
Yeah, I think also one of the examples that you mentioned was, like, I think last Wednesday, Microsoft Office 365 went down for some of the geographic areas for us.
Yes.
So this was.
This happened, gentlemen. This happened. And I don't think that this is something against them. By the end of the day, there may be some infrastructure problem, or there may be denial of service. It's not under their controls. Yes, we have some solutions, but in some situations, there may be a zero-day attack. It depends for how long it will take. If the service it will be down for 1 day, 2 days, come on, this is not a professional service. But if it's 1 hour, 2 hours, it can happen. It can happen. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for your time today. Today we finished 50% of the course. Tomorrow we will start the application security, inshallah, and see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Saudi Arabia time.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.